Hey, it's time for another Tyranid Tactica video. This week I thought I'd cover the Hive Tyrant. Over the next few weeks I'm going to try and release a video each week. I got a few things I think will help benefit some newer players and maybe open some discussion for some more veteran players as well. So looking at the Hive Tyrant, first thing we're going to go over is the overview of the model itself. And then we're also going to get into how to physically build the models and some tips you should consider, and also the specific loadouts that you can equip your Hive Tyrants with and where they fit best in the lists. So looking at the Hive Tyrant right away, the most common question you hear on the forums is, how should I build my Hive Tyrant? The easy answer is the Flying Hive Tyrant loadout. All that consists of is a Hive Tyrant with wings and 2 Twin Link Brain Leech Devourers. This easily is the best loadout in our codex, and you quite often see many lists running with anywhere between 1 to 5 of these guys, 5 and 4 or so being in more competitive environments. So one thing you have to consider again is keep in mind your local meta. I'm going to do another video on local meta to explain this to newer players, and in regards to Tyranids, what they need to consider when they build their army. But anyway, on the Flying Hive Tyrant, one thing to note is he doesn't come with the Devourers in the box, but I'll show you that in a second when we go over the actual physical build. So essentially the Flying Hive Tyrant is easily the Tyranid codex itself. It carries the codex on its back constantly, so that's a huge reason why you also see the Flying Hive Tyrants in most lists. Being that they're flyer, obviously, they're hard to hit, they have 2 psychic powers. Tyranid powers aren't the best, but you have a chance to get Feel No Pain. There's a couple other useful things. And then the Devourers themselves pump out 12 Twin Link shots at strength 6, so you can easily see why he's such a powerful gunboat and why there's many included in the list. So on an initial note, that's the best way to build your Hive Tyrant. So if you just got the kit and you're wondering how should I build it, that's the best way to go. But the one thing I want to recommend about building the model is magnets. So you can see I have 2 Flying Hive Tyrants here, and I also have another Hive Tyrant here. And you might think that, oh well, he's not flying too, so why do you not have the best loadout on all of them? The reason I did this is because I magnetized him, and I just wanted to kind of have the option to do a fluffier game where we go really light and I could use a walking Hive Tyrant, but I'll go over the strength and weaknesses of them in a moment. But for those of you wondering how to magnetize a Hive Tyrant, I'm going to give you a little look at how I performed it. Alright, so let's look at the model itself. So I know a lot of people get the kit and they're a little intimidated by just how do I magnetize. It can be a little more advanced just to kind of think about it, but really it's easy. So we're going to take a look at my Hive Tyrant I have here. So this guy I just started to magnetize. So all his limbs come off, as you can see. So now, the trouble with the Hive Tyrant is that the wings are so big, as you can see here, that it's really hard to get them in place. So if you just use straight magnets, they're not going to stay on. So to go over how I magnetize them, if you take a look, all I did was take the limbs and just find a drill bit the size of my magnet, and I just drilled in enough onto the limb that the magnet would just slide right in. As you can see, I just did it for all his limbs. Sometimes you might have the magnet stick out a little bit like this, but that's okay, because once it goes in on the model, you can see it kind of just slides in, and so you can't really notice the magnet. So that's how you magnetize standard limbs. It's really easy to do. Now the hard part I mentioned earlier is getting the wings to stay in place. So you can see I have these holes here, there, and actually I'll explain what this little mess here is in a second. But so all I did was I drilled some holes here and on the other side, and then I took the wings and I just got a little metal pin. You can use paper clip. I had these little metal rods available, so I used them a little bit more sturdy. Then I just lined them up and I just drilled a little hole into here, just enough that this rod would slide, and then I glued it in place. And I also put a magnet there as well. So when I put the magnet on this end, it lines up to connect with this magnet, and also the hole holds in place. So you slide it in, there. So that solves your problem of having a loose wing. Now, as you can see, my magnet kind of shows a bit there. This all just comes with experience. The wings are tougher to do, and it was my first time actually doing any real pinning, so I had a bit of trouble there, but just take your time. I kind of rushed through it, I won't lie. But speaking on the point of rushing, so you can kind of see it fits in real good there. On the other side, I actually messed up where I went to pin it, so it ended up being a big hole right there. You can see the actual hole I have is in back there, but it's really noticeable from putting the wing on, so I'll show you right quick. You can see on this wing I have it a little bit of a mess there, so it goes in, it's nice and sturdy. But from the back you can kind of see that you saw the pin there. Now the fun thing you can do if you ever mess up with anything is just count it as damage on the model. So you can see I kind of made some purpley blood there, and I kind of tried to make it look like it was a plasma scar, and as you can see by my model, I glued on a plasma pistol on there. It's actually funny, I had this on here before I made this mistake, so it just kind of worked out real good. But anyway, if you mess up, you can always just easily make it so it's battle damage and whatever. So don't be shy to get in there and make a few mistakes. So you can see the wing fits in there. I'll grab the other one. Voila, you got yourself a flyer. Now, on the subject of devours, since we're talking about building, the kit doesn't come with the twin link devours, but you can easily make your own. You can use the style I use there. You can see these guys got the same build for their devours, or you can actually use the Brainleech devours that are provided in the Carnifex kit. I just have a bunch of these magnetized because I have them on my Carnifexes too, so I have a ton of these devours in addition to my custom devours. So you can use the death spitters, and if you have some extra gaunt devours, you can chop off the end of the death spitter and then kind of just shave down the gaunt devour and just glue the tip on the end there to kind of make yourself a rifle there. And since there's only one arm set for the two sets of devours, I count this as one twin link devour, and this is my second. Whereas normally, say on the Carnifexes, you would need 4 of these, with each pair being one set of twin link devours. So what you can do then to get the double pair is to take another gaunt devour and just cut it down just to the end. I'm trying my best so you can see here. So you want to just snip it off where the gaunt handle would attach. Now I kept some of the hoses there as it just fit right onto the death spitter. And you can use a bit of green stuff. I had liquid green stuff and I kind of just blended it in a bit and just glue it on there. And once you get it all painted up, it looks good. Beforehand mine looked kind of sloppy, but just once I got the paint on, it really just came together. So worked great for there. As you can see on the side. So that's one easy way out of the box to build yourself some twin link devours. And then if you want, you can build and magnetize some for these guys as well. Or if you just like the look of them, you could just build a bunch of them, and then you got tons for your Carnifexes or just your Tyrants or walking Tyrants, whatever you want. So that's a quick little overview of how you can build your Hive Tyrants right out of the kit, and give you some ideas maybe if you want to magnetize so you don't feel that you're constricted to the Flying Hive Tyrant build. But next we're going to go over the loadouts themselves and options that you can consider. Okay, so I initially already talked about the Flyrant, and that is being the basic build, but we will briefly talk about walking Hive Tyrants and a couple options you can use with Flying Hive Tyrants to kind of improve them overall. So right off the bat, we'll talk about the walking Hive Tyrant. Plain and simple, if you're going to use this guy, you are going to struggle. You can bring some Tyrant Guard with him, but the downside to this is that it's slow moving units and extremely expensive. So by the time they get anywhere, they probably won't do too much, or they're just going to get pegged off as they walk up the table. One thing to note too with the walking Hive Tyrants is their limited range too. If you take them as close combat units, again, they're going to be slow getting there, but if you take Devours on them, their range is only 18 inches, so they essentially have a 24-inch threat range, which really isn't that much when you're considering the mobility of a Flyer. and most armies these days are fast enough that they can get away or kind of just avoid the Tyrant at all costs. So right off the bat, walking Hive Tyrants are the weaker of the two builds. I wouldn't recommend them unless you're playing in a really light area, or if you guys just play for fun and you just want to mess around, and again you have magnets, you want to just try them out. So give it a go though. I'm not saying that you should never ever use it, but I'm just letting you know where you will struggle using a walking Tyrant. As for the weapons themselves, Twin Link Devourers are the way to go. A heavy venom cannon just isn't worth the points, neither is the Barbed Strangler. Devourers put out way more damage. You might think that with the other guns they have higher range, but overall they're not strong enough, and there's not enough reliability to get the point investment into the Hive Tyrant with them. So that's kind of the walking Hive Tyrant in a nutshell. Again, we are going to talk about the grubs, like electroshock grubs, desiccated larvae. With the slow-moving walking Hive Tyrant, it's not worth using on them, but we're going to talk about them here with the flying Hive Tyrants. So that's the walking Hive Tyrant in a nutshell. So now, looking at the flying Hive Tyrants. Ways you can improve them, in addition to their standard Twin Link Devourer and Wing Load, is putting the grubs on them. So you can put on the electroshock grubs to get haywire, which is what I commonly do. So it helps Tyranids fight against heavy armor. So if you got a couple Hive Tyrants, you can kind of fly around and take down jinking vehicles, or you can even use it against land raiders. It helps a ton. That's really all you can do for the flying Hive Tyrants to improve them. I wouldn't recommend any upgrades such as regeneration or toxin sacks or anything, because overall they don't get into combat. And with regeneration, it's just too much points to really pay off. If you do have the spare points and you got a couple Hive Tyrants, I'd recommend putting on the Warlord if you have to go that route. I wouldn't definitely not recommend putting it on multiple Flyers, because in the end you could almost get another unit of gargoyles, say if you had 3 Hive Tyrants. A lot of people like to use close combat flying Hive Tyrants. I've never really done it myself. Your list has to kind of complement it to a degree. The trouble with them is if they're flying, swooping that is, they still have to land and they can't assault till the next turn. So they have to land, then next turn they can charge in. So it kind of makes them, if you swoop right off the bat, they can't actually charge till turn 3. And if you're jumping, they become more vulnerable. But being that I have this Leviathan book here, we're going to talk about one of the formations that can kind of help that. So close combat Hive Tyrants aren't as effective as the Devourer ones overall. They can work, but they take a bit more finesse to use. So give them a go, but keep in mind that the first runs with them might not go over as you plan it, but don't let that discourage you from trying it out again. So overall, that's the loadouts and best ways you can build your Hive Tyrants. I'm going to mention quickly, there's a few formations that can kind of improve the flying Hive Tyrant, especially the close combat ones, such as taking the, I just blanked on what it's called. It's the formation that brings 20 gargoyles, I believe it is, and a flying Hive Tyrant. Now the downside to this is the flyer can't swoop, but being that it has such a large footprint with the gargoyles, and that they can look out on the Hive Tyrant, it can kind of make it easier to spread out and maybe catch something close combat. Now there's some huge downsides that you need to consider, such as enemy units will wound it on 3s, being that the majority toughness is 3, so more often than not you'll get bolters wounding the unit on 3s. So that means a ton of shots can come in and really hurt the Hive Tyrant. Also too, that you can't swoop, your mobility is limited, plus if you're facing a close combat army, you have a bigger footprint, so they can also tie up your Hive Tyrant much easier. So there's a lot of risks with kind of a little reward with it. But if you do want to run the melee Tyrant, this could be an option for you. But I personally wouldn't recommend it, but give it a go. So now on your list, we're going to just briefly talk about how many flyers you should include. So again, this is going to go back to your local meta and just what works for you. On average, most people seem to include 2 of them as kind of a bare minimum standard for the most part. I sometimes get away with just running 1, but we don't always play competitive games when we play, so again, you have to examine your opponents, and maybe you can just talk about it beforehand and see if they're going to bring a couple flyers, maybe you can have the option to bring some flyers. It all depends what your group does when it comes to games. So But if you have any other questions about the Hive Tyrant or any other Tactica videos you want to see, or if there's anything I even missed, please feel free to comment below. I hope you enjoy this video series, and my goal is to just help introduce newer Tyranid players into the army, and just kind of reduce some of the intimidation factor that comes with playing Tyranids, as they're kind of a lower tier army right now, but with the right mindset they can be fun to play, and it just takes a lot of work. And